think you need to play around with your poses a lot to find what makes your physique look the best. Because like how I hit a front double to make me look good versus how you hit it, how somebody else hits it, might not accentuate your strengths and hide your weaknesses the same for everybody. You know, whether it's shifting your hips a little bit or, you know, changing the angle of your arms or things like that. You know, so I think individuality in the posing is very important. And then the obvious answer of practicing your posing a lot is crucial, and not even just for how you hit the poses, but for like the stamina of doing it. Because on show day, you know, it can get very tiring, especially if they work you through a lot of rounds, and you can really tell who's practiced their posing a lot and who hasn't. You know, when you watch a guy like 𝗖𝗛𝗥𝗜𝗦𝗧𝗜𝗔 or Nick Walker pose on stage, and they can stand there for an hour hitting those poses.
Yeah.
You know, you can definitely tell that that's been practiced. That's not just something they're born with, you know?
No.
So that's why it's very important as well.
Yeah.
What else would I say? Those are probably the two big things.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah.
And how often do you train your posing during your preparation, like for a show, or is it every day, every morning, or?
Yeah, I'd say it usually goes kind of in cycles for most guys. So like, let's say in the off season, they're probably not practicing their posing quite as much. You know, maybe a couple times a week, once, twice a week, you know, running through it. Or if they're sending updates to their coach once a week, you know, they're doing, you know, maybe 20, 30 minutes of posing once a week. But once they get into prep, you know, once you're, say, 16, 20 weeks out, most guys are doing at least a little bit most days of the week. You know, at least the days that they train. You know, I'd say 15 minutes to 20 minutes every day, or, you know, it doesn't even need to be long. I think just run through at least 2 rounds of all the poses, holding them for as long as you would probably hold them on stage. So not just like hitting it and being like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then switch to the next pose, you know? Just to get the feel of like holding a pose. And I think one thing that's very important with posing as well is not over hitting a pose. I think we think that like flexing really hard makes a pose look better, and if you flex your arm and then flex it really hard, it looks the same, you know? Squeezing it harder won't make things look better. It's either contracted or it's not. So I think there's a level of, you know, that you got to learn of how hard you can hit it to get the most out of the muscle, which is as little as possible to still get the best look, you know? You want to squeeze as little as possible and still get the maximal look out of it. That's going to be able to be the most sustainable on stage for sure.
Okay, great. And like for me, I have some issues with posing and opening my lats. What's the do you have tips for me, like when I struggle with hitting that pose or holding it? Do you have some tips for that? Is it like mind muscle, or is it just practicing and practicing?
It's just practicing, yeah. I mean, you know, I need to see your pictures again to remember to see exactly, but yeah, I mean, I know getting lats out for people is usually one of the hardest things in posing, especially on back shots. You know, like on a back double or a back lat, I find people have, especially like lat poses, like front lat, back lat, to really get those out. I find people, that's really what the most difficult thing is when people are first learning to get really good at posing. So it's just practicing them, and practicing them in front of a mirror, especially at first. You know, I think the more you pose, you don't want to pose with a mirror necessarily, because you're not going to have a mirror on stage. But do I think that initially see it move or see it come into place, then you can try and replicate that feeling, but you need to be able to see that it actually gotten to where you want it to be. So I think first is definitely using a mirror, or setting up some kind of mirror so you can see your back as well, having like a high and a low mirror so you can see your back. I think that's very valuable as well,
and when I like practicing posing in a mirror, I saw my pictures on stage. Like when I do a double by on a mirror, I can do it like this. But when I saw the pictures, it was more like this. So how do you? Is it then like film it and check how you do it like that?
Yeah. So once you got it nailed down pretty good on doing it in front of the mirror, then that's when you would remove having the mirrors and try and hit it consistently without them, and that's when you would start using, like, filming yourself doing them, you know? So set your camera up on a tripod or whatever you need to do, some way to set it up. Film yourself hitting your poses, and then go back and look at them and be like, okay, well, that's not the same as I was hitting it in the mirror. Why wasn't that? And then try and fix it from there. So it is two different types of posing. Posing with a mirror and posing without are definitely different. So you need to get good at one, which is kind of like walking before you can run, you know?
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Well, now I have some questions about the lean bulk. I'm doing a lean bulk right now.
Sure.
So yeah, when I finished my show, it was hard to start a lean bulk because I was afraid to gain mass. But now, I'm now 6 months, 7 months further, so now it's all fine. But now I have sometimes in my head when I have like when I'm sitting at the when I watch a movie and eat some chips or popcorn. Did you do that also like a lean bulk, or was it also that strict like in a prep mode?
No, like I think as a bodybuilder, because your nutrition is so important, you do need to be mindful of it all the time. So I wasn't ever eating stuff like that on a daily basis, let's say. But like, let's say once a week in an off season or when I'm in a bulk, you know, if I want to watch a movie with my wife and sit on the couch and eat some popcorn or some chips or have something like that, that's usually fine. I think you need to be, you know, you need to use your best judgment as well, where your body fat is and what rate it's increasing. If you're 25% body fat, I don't think you should be eating chips regularly. If you're pretty lean and you're holding that conditioning pretty easily, then I think it's not a big issue. So it's not going to be the same for everyone. You know, some guys can get away eating more junk than others, and some guys really have to be very, very strict, or they're going to accumulate body fat very quickly.
Because
so no, I mean, I tried to get in the off season. 90% of my food was clean, and then 10% of the week, you know, if I want to go out and eat a meal on the weekend. But like I said, if you're someone that's naturally lean and gaining weight and body fat is kind of difficult for you, I know guys that have 2 or 3 cheat meals a week, you know?
Because I'm just watching the scale like every week, and just I think it's in kg, so in America it's pounds.
I know kg, that's fine.
Yeah, I do 1.4 every week. I want to gain a little bit, so when I keep that holding that, it's totally fine if the macros are okay, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think there will be a point where gaining consistently 1.4 kilos every week will be possible without it being body fat. No, you know, because that's, you know, I mean, that's 5+ kilos a month. I mean, that's, you know, that's a good chunk of weight. To gain 10 pounds a month is a lot, and for that not to be body fat to some degree will be difficult. So I think you can keep that as a rule of thumb for progressing in your training and your nutrition, but you also still need to be using the mirror and photos to make sure that body fat isn't accumulating. Because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gaining 2 kilos or 1.5 kilos a week. Things are good, but then you start to notice, okay, yeah, I'm gaining that 1.4 kilos, but I'm starting to look a little sloppier in my pictures. Then maybe let's, you know, reel it back a little bit and not aim for 1.4 kilos a week. So it's good to use it first if body fat's in check, but as you get farther into the off season, and there is a bit of body fat accruing, then you'll want to be a little more careful with it for sure.
I'm bulking now for 1.5 years because I'm a natural bodybuilder, so I need more time to gain weight, to get some mass. Did you do, when you do a lean bulk for a long time, how often do you do like a mini cut, and how many weeks are you doing that mini cut? Is it like a month very heavy, or is it like 2 months a little bit slower?
Yeah, I didn't do a ton of them throughout my career, but I think there is value in, you know, resensitizing yourself when it's needed. You know, obviously as body fat gets a little higher, your body and your insulin sensitivity and stuff won't be quite as good. So I do think there's value in it, but I think guys are a little too concerned with staying too lean, so you need to be kind of cautious with how often you approach that, because you get guys who will, you know, gain 10 pounds, they'll mini cut and take 8 of that off, you know? So it's you know, you don't want to be going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You want to be pretty linear, and I think if you are strategic with your nutrition and you're not gaining excess body fat during the process, you shouldn't need to do them very often. But say if one is needed, you know, I think it's kind of play it by ear. You know, when you feel like your appetite's starting to kind of get back a bit, you know, especially if you're pushing food hard for quite a while, your appetite can really kind of get down, and getting the food in will become more difficult. So then I would do it as long as it takes to feel hungry consistently throughout the day again. You know, but I wouldn't be doing a mini cut for a month. I don't think that's too long. I think that's too long. I think, you know, 2 to 3 weeks at most. You know, bring food down. I think it's important to bring protein down, especially. You know, that's really going to be one of the harder things for digestive system. And then obviously carbs to some degree, because that's going to have, you know, an impact on your look as well. So yeah, it's one of those things, play by ear. Bring them down, say like 25%. You know, do it for a week or two. See how you feel. See how you look. Obviously, if you've got to the point where body fat is quite high, and you do need to actually just reduce body fat, well then yeah, you're going to need more than 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, you might need to take 4, 6, 8 weeks to bring body fat down a little bit before you push back up. But the best prevention for that is just not getting there in the first place.
No.
So don't get fat to begin with, right?
Yeah, and with which percent of body fat do you think you need a mini cut to start? Is it like 20%, or is it already at 15?
No, I think if you're 15, you're in a pretty good spot. I think if you're getting over 20, then you're definitely getting a little on the too fat side. So then I would definitely do a mini cut to get myself back kind of into that 16 or less range. You know?
Check. Yeah. Also, perfect.
I think you should always have some semblance of visible abs all the time.
Yeah.
If you have it so you have just no abs
and a belly
at all, like it's a hard rule, because everyone stores fat differently. You know, some guys have really good abs even when they're 25% body fat, but they're fat everywhere else. But as an overarching rule of thumb, you should at least have some bit of visible abs all year. You know?
Yeah, perfect. And a little bit about the foods. The macros. Do you always look to the carbs, fats, and proteins? Proteins is always like 2 times my body weight, a little bit more than that. And do you always have the same days, the same carbs, the same fats, or are you playing a bit around with carbs and fats?
Yeah, so, and this is what, in an off season, like in a bulk or in a...
in a bulk, yeah. In lean bulk, sometimes I'm playing around with the carbs and the fats. Yeah,
so it would be kind of the same. I mean, your protein is kind of your constant, so it's not as much of a variable as the others. You know, like you'll find a number, you know, anywhere, it depends. I mean, I think as low as 1.5 times your body weight can be good, you know, but I guess you're doing in kg, so yeah, I mean, how much do you weigh? 95 kilos. So let's say about 100 kilos. So yeah, I mean, I would want to be getting in at least, you know, 250 plus grams a day of protein. You know, if I'm doing it in pounds, I think matching your body weight is usually good. So like, say for you, you'd be about 220 pounds. So, you know, one gram of protein per pound. 1 gram of protein per pound is usually sufficient. So that would bring you to about 220 grams of protein. So yeah, for you, about 2 to 2.5 times your body weight is probably good if you're doing it in kg. So, so that would stay kind of constant all year. If anything, in the off season, you could probably have your protein lower than in the prep. I don't think you need as much protein when you have as much carbs in. Carbs are going to be protein sparing to some degree, so you know, and your total calories are going to be a lot higher, so you won't need as much protein. So usually I would go like, say for me, if in an off season I would have 300 grams of protein. In a prep I might have 350 or 375. So there's a little bit of variance in there, and it just takes a little bit of ease off your digestive system as well to allow it for the carbs and fats. The carbs and fats I'm not usually moving around too much, unless they're needed to keep my weight progressing forward, and then I'm just upping by a small increment. I do think there is some value in doing some sort of carb cycling where on your off training days you are consuming less. I think that is valuable. You know, I think on the off training days to have a little lower carbs and give your body a little bit of a chance to have a break from the digestive stress and from your pancreas, from the insulin and stuff like that. I think having that, say if you're training 5 days a week, on those 2 days a week you're not training, to have your carbs, you know, 30% lower or something, I think can be valuable. And fats I kind of keep more or less as a constant. I don't change them a super ton, unless you're getting really close to a show, and then obviously you can bring those down. But fats are one thing you need to be careful with, because they're an easy food to get in to increase calories by a lot. Like, you can add olive oil to all your meals.
Yeah, it's going for very hard, yeah. Yeah,
it's very low food volume, but the thing is, more fats you add are going to slow the digestion of everything else that you eat alongside it. So if you start to push up your fats really high, you'll start to notice, like, man, I'm eating the same food, it feels like, volume-wise, but I'm finding I'm full a lot longer from my meals, and it's making them hard to get in. You need to be careful with your fats. So, like, I did it some off seasons where I pushed my fats up really high, because it was just easier than eating more rice or more meat or whatever. But it made all my meals much harder to eat. So there's kind of a point of diminishing returns with fats, where you get a good amount, so all your kind of needs are met for, you know, hormonal things and stuff like that, and to support your training. But if you go over the edge with that, then you'll definitely find your digestive system will get bogged down for sure.
Yeah. More specifically to training, I'm now always training until failure. Did you also do that when you were mostly on your bulk, of course, and when you go prep it's a little bit heavier? But
failure all the time. I was a moderate volume guy. I wouldn't say I'm like a low volume guy. I wasn't doing like 6 working sets in a workout. Like that's way lower than I was ever doing. I'd kind of be more in like the 12 to 15 working sets in a workout.
Yeah.
You know, 5 exercises, 2 sets on most of them, and then say some of the more isolated exercises like a pec deck or a lateral raise, I might do 3 sets. Things that are not quite as like nervous system demanding. The only time I really, in an off season, I would try to continually be progressive with my weights and somewhat with increasing my volume as much as I could. In a prep, I would actually start to lower it the closer I would get to a show. So like within 4 weeks of a show, I would definitely start to reduce my volume a little bit. You know, take out any intensifiers if I had any. I would not take every set to failure, say on an exercise. I would take maybe 1 set to failure instead of 2. Just as your body is starting to get in a little more compromised state closer to a show, I would start to bring the intensity down a bit, because it can be a time when you can really blow through a lot of muscle if you're not careful, you know?
I'm now training like mostly 2 working sets and between 5 and 8 reps, so mostly to failure. Perfect.
Yeah, great. Yeah. What kind of split are you doing right now? Do you do like a push-pull legs? Or you do like a
I'm now I started this week with pull push legs, and then rest day, and then upper lower. And on my pull day, my first pull day, I will do also a set of leg extension, because my legs is a weak point. So I will try to get more damage on it. And on my leg day, I will also do a set of lat pull down, because my lats is also a weak point and I hit it more. The weeks before I did a 2-week split, also to damage it more days. But now I'm doing push pull legs and then upper lower.
Okay, so push pull legs off, upper lower off, push pull legs off.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
How do you mentally get when you do a training? I'm not an ego lifter. I'm always trying to get my best form, but in the weeks I see that my training is doing a little bit. The form is getting not optimally. I will increase a little bit too fast the weight, and when I see it back on video, I see, damn, I was too fast with adding extra weight. But how do you mentally completely don't ego lifting? I'm not a completely ego lifter, but I think you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle on this one, because I do think that I'm not someone that thinks that your form needs to be like 110% 10% all the time.
No.
I do think there is a place for it to get just a little bit sloppier in the name of progressive overload. But if I say I was working up with a weight and like my form's good, my form's good, my form's good, and then I get to a week where I push the weight a little too much and my form gets a little sloppy, I would stay at that weight before I increase it until my form can get really good. So like say the next week it's like, okay, my form's a little better, but it's still not perfect. Okay, I keep it again the next week. Okay, now my form's perfect. Okay, the next week I get up, and then I would kind of go from there. So if you have a week or two where your form's like not perfect, but all your other lifts, let's say, are increasing, or then that lift will improve alongside them. So I think as long as you're, not getting so sloppy that on rep 1 your form is bad. Like if say you're doing a deadlift, let's say, or an RDL, and the weight is just so heavy that your back is round and you really can't maintain form from like the first rep, then I think you should probably reduce the weight. But like say you're aiming for 5 or 6 reps or 7 reps, and by rep like 4 it starts to get sloppy and you do like 2 or 3 reps that are like not perfect, I think that's perfectly fine. Obviously I would take it with a grain of salt with which exercise it is. Some exercises are obviously going to have a higher risk of injury than others. If you're doing really heavy squats and your form starts to get shitty on rep 4, that's a little scarier than if it does it on like a pec deck, you know what I mean? So yeah, obviously there is some risk assessment there. Heavy weights in compromising exercises, there's obviously going to be more risk to it. So yeah, just use your best judgment.
Yeah, that's exactly how I train. I see in a few weeks I add a little bit too much weight, but then I will firstly perfection my form and then adding extra. So then it's completely fine.
And don't be afraid to like use like micro progressions. Like some weeks I would even do stuff where I would increase, like I'd put an extra 2 pounds on the bar, you know? Because it almost would feel like the same weight as the last week, but I would do that weight now for the same reps. So a lot of guys are like, okay, I want to increase by putting a 25 on or a 10 on or even a 5 on. Like there's even sometimes I would take out the 1 pound weights. I have like 1.25 pounds, so like, 0.5 kilos. And I would use those sometimes even if I put one of those on each side, just to get a little bit more, or using like a little add-on to the machine, adding 1 kilo, 2 kilos, small little increments, I find those ways you can always kind of keep a pretty linear progression. Once you've reached a point where you are kind of stalling out, using those micro progressions can be very valuable for keeping things rolling,
And like rest in between sets, do you track it like with a stopwatch, or is it just like feeling, I'm okay and I can do a set again?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you should take as long as you need to feel 100% ready for the set. But obviously you need to like be honest with yourself of like, don't be lazy. You know what I mean? Like there's a time where it's like, okay, I'm 100% ready. We're waiting 1 more minute won't make you any better. And we're waiting 30 seconds less would make you worse. So like get to that point of like, okay, I'm good, I'm mentally ready, I've caught my breath, I'm ready to go. But like you need to obviously not be slow, And it's going to be different depending on what you're training. Obviously if you're training arms versus training legs, you're going to need more rest on. Yeah, exactly. So no, I never time my breaks. I don't think there's any value in that for hypertrophy training. I think for athletic-based training, definitely there is. But for hypertrophy training, I don't think there's any value in that. No.
And like food between training, do you always strict like 1 hour before training, or is it just when you like a little bit of bossy and you are eating 30 minutes or a quarter before training? Is it?
Yeah, look, I was really bad with this my whole career. I would sometimes eat and like finish my meal, walk out the door. And
oh yeah, I do exactly the same. So my coach told me you need to wait longer before.
Yeah, look, I do think it is better to wait longer, but I didn't have any serious issues with it my whole career, so I'm not going to sit here and say that you need to do it. I would literally, like even just yesterday, I finished my meal, I mixed my pre-workout, I drove to the gym. Like, I'm not like sitting around for 30 minutes, an hour, and then going. There will be a point in the off season.
Yeah, the stomach
where
is full,
it makes it tough, to like if you're eating a big meal, then you got to go train legs. It's going to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
So then those days for like that, I would be a little more conscious of trying to space your food out from your training. One thing you will notice too, I don't care about it that much, but you will notice your pumps when you train are going to be a little better if your meal's a little farther away from your training.
Yeah, your blood flows need to go,
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, the blood's out of your stomach and, you know, the food is processed a little better. Your pumps when you train will definitely be better. So, but at the end of the day, there's food in your system. I don't think it matters. I don't think blood flow is what drives hypertrophy. So I don't think it's mattering in terms of your progress in training. But yeah, it's just go by what's comfortable, you know?
Yeah. And like, did you also have a strict like meal plan, like in between meals? So sometimes I train not really in the morning, but a little bit later. But then I have like 2 meals in one time. Is it really bad to do it, or is it micromanaging?
No, if you can stomach eating 2 meals together to make it easier for you to condense it, you're getting all the same calories in for the day. It doesn't really matter. You know, obviously if you can be, you know, good with your meal timing, I don't think you need to eat meals every 2 hours. I don't think that matters. You know, I think as long as you get it on all your food in the day, you know, some meals I'll eat 2 hours apart, some meals I'll eat 4 hours apart. I don't think it matters too much. When I was young, I was very, very, like, 2 hours every, you know, I had to be on the ball, but it doesn't actually really matter. I think actually not having that stress in the back of your mind of like, oh my God, I have to eat, is much better. And actually, I think when you're stressed out about eating, it probably makes your progress worse than just not worrying about it and just being like, oh, I'll get it in when I can, or if I need to condense 2 meals together, it's no big deal. I don't think stressing out over food is conducive at all. So yeah, if you want to combine 2 or, you know, eat them a few different hours apart, I don't think it's a big deal. You know?
Okay, well, that are my questions. Now I have some personal questions. Are you planning a comeback for a stage or not?
I don't know. I mean, my wife and I are trying to have kids, so
yeah,
it's really timing based. You know, like I'm 34 now, so say we had a kid in the next year, then maybe I would consider it. But if it's like 2 years, I'm 36 now. It's like, meh, you know, I don't really know. I mean, I might do it as an amateur for fun because that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I can relinquish my pro card now with the new rules, and I could go do an amateur show. So I've honestly considered doing that, just going to like a regional show in my city and like going and competing, which would be really funny. And I think for social media that would be hilarious. You know, like Olympia level guy showing up at a level 1 regional show is pretty funny. So so I've considered doing it. You know, do I think that I would get back to the Olympia and be a competitive top 8 guy? Probably not. You know, I think I could probably win a pro show and get to the Olympia, but I don't think I would be competing. You know, I've been out of it for a year and a half while these guys have been at it 100%, so I don't think I could get back there to be the best I've ever been, but I still think I could be like a competitive guy that like wins some smaller shows and, you know, competes in that kind of 10 to 15 at the Olympia. So I don't know, if I was going to do it, it would be just for fun. It wouldn't be to try and go back and like win the Olympia or anything, you know?
Yeah, because you still live like a bodybuilder, because you always do your training. So do you miss the competition?
I don't miss like being on stage. I miss everything else about it. Like I miss the environment. I miss like the day of the show and the excitement and like getting tanned and being backstage and seeing all the people. And I love prepping for shows. Like prepping is like one of my favorite times. Like I love that challenge, and like seeing my body change is like what I really, really love.
Oh yeah, for me it's exactly the same. I love the vibe of the show and do it with the close friends that helps you, and like the fully focus in prep is really awesome. Yeah. So that's like the actual being on stage and posing and doing all that is like, sure, I miss it a little bit, but like I would never come back just for that. It's everything else before that, you know? So yeah, no, I mean, I definitely do miss that for sure. Well, that are my questions, I guess.
Awesome. Cool, man.
Yeah, I just really like to talk with you. I want to talk more hours, but
awesome, man. Well, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Bye.